Hey, I want to talk about Smolder. Smolder's average build consists of ability haste and maybe some bruiser items, really mana and ability haste. Regular build looking maybe something like this. And the whole point and the premise of it is just to get as many stacks as he can to rush towards his own execute. But there's some pet peeves I have with that. And the biggest one really being is that it doesn't really do damage. It doesn't really deal any good damage. And it's not what I want to blame the kit, but what the people keep viewing it as is just a perma stacking rush towards execute kind of champion. It's really hard for him to feel impactful early to mid game. And I just want to change a little bit of that. I want to feel like I want to print the idea of earlier damage but harder scaling Smolder. Because there's a few things I feel like the community's not really utilizing. One of the first things I want to present is the fact that his AoE has on-hit potential, specifically his Q. His run explosion like this one, and when he decides to upgrade it, they get the explosions following afterwards. So, the initial explosion and the ones afterwards. All of those explosions proc on-hit. On-hit effects. I mean, you think that's not so much, but let me sell it to you. So firstly, if you can, more often than not, pick up Cole. Cole specifically has a health restoration on hit as a flat amount. This really helps out in early game. I would forego Doran's Blade for Cole, but you can just go this on your first back. Aside from just Cole being like a worth item for everybody, it's more worth for Smolder because he can utilize that on hit heal better than most champs. Once you get 25 stacks and you get this AoE for your Q, everything hit by your Q, every entity hit by your Q will heal you appropriately. So if you get the whole line of like casters or little soldier minions, like at least three, 1 Q is 9 health. And if you could bunch them together, even better results obviously, but basically you're getting to an extent like a budget fleet for work that has no cooldown. On hit flat heal with no cooldown. There goes 9 health. Auto in between here and there. Another 9 health. Right? In the laning phase, it is a pretty good sustaining item, just because you can utilize it better than most other champs. Another item worth considering that I don't see built very often is Blade. And sure, you might think, oh, I'm just pressing my Q, I can't proc the on-hit effect. But even then, it has great damage potential because of what your Q does mid to late game, right? A whole AoE Q, the initial circular blast, the entire every entity struck with your Q will be procced with on hit, attack with the current health physical damage. So it enables you to peel even harder. Mid to late game, that's more valuable when you want people to get executed by your Q. But even then, the amount of area that your Q spans once you get 225 stacks is massive. Like you can use this to hit the entire enemy team and proc Blade on them. And that current health physical damage is what you heal from. You amp your healing just because you're taking away a great chunk of their health as an on hit being applied to your Q. And then one last item I just want to try to see if I can sell you on is the very notion of rapid fire cannon. There's just a simple cheese you can do once you get the energized fully stacked and you get its bonus range. You can actually kind of cheese having two autos, quote unquote two autos, at that range. If you manage to Q and then immediately auto, you can basically send out two projectiles at that further distance. See how I was like over here? This is my normal range. And I was able to auto one following up. Before my Q lands, auto one more time at least. And then you can get another cheeky auto in. Trying to amp up your DPS, even if it is just a singular poke. Q, then auto. And at that same distance, I didn't move any closer. Doesn't work the other way around. Here. let me get into the build idea. The biggest thing I want to try to enable other people to do, or encourage really, is the idea of building crit chance. Going full crit on Smolder. You can see here, reading into the text, he gets a damage boost multiplier based on crit chance. It says 75% of crit, so 100% crit would equal 75% bonus damage. His damage is amped a little bit further. His ability is amped a little bit further towards minions and monsters by just 10%. You can reach towards at the very end. What this means is that if you manage to get full crit, in essence, you get 75% bonus damage to your kill. Another little tidbit is looking at your passive, you get bonus magic damage, flat magic damage based off your crit chance. 100% crit would equal, right there, the first one, 75 basically bonus flat magic damage. I mean, you think that's not huge, but when you put on top of that, that it's already being multiplied after you get that flat amount going along with all your stacks, you're multiplying your damage, essentially. The build I want to recommend, or at least the build path going into it, is going Essence Reaver first. It builds up into what people want: ability haste, a lot of AD, and then crit chance. That valuable crit chance to enable your damage. Afterwards, I would recommend Rapid Fire Cannon. It enables easier farming, a bit more like bonus magic damage. It's like a means of like anti-building against. Like, sure, you deal mostly AD, but this just pushes on a little bit more magic damage initially, so tanks have a harder time building against you. And sure, while it doesn't give any AD to enable your damage, it has that valuable crit chance. A little bit of move speed, which is always nice, help kiting, attack speed for better long-term fights. And from here, I always like to go Mortal Reminder, because Lord Dominix has been nerfed to the ground. Really, all you're choosing is between 10 more AD or Grievous. Grievous can stunt healing, can disable people's whole gimmick of a character, or just basically put the enemy team at disadvantage if they're relying on lifesteal, healing from supports or from their own kit, whatnot. This just gives them a disadvantage. You choose between 10 AD or giving the enemy team a disadvantage at any sustain. And your AoE is great. You can proc Grievous fairly easily and very well. Now this is where the game you decide if you want to go. You bask into going anti-tank. Maybe consider Blade the Rune King, or going against the squishies a bit more. And like a good anti-burst and give you another edge, giving you great amount of AD, that valuable crit chance, and a shield to help you with anti-burst. Use your Mortal Shield Bow. I would recommend Blade at one point or another. If you think you can live without it, that's totally fine. But, not go for it in terms of anti-tanking. Maybe switch up some of the runes that I'll just explain a little bit later into like Legend Bloodline. Just so you have enough lifesteal to get by. Not to thrive, but to get by. Even then, I hardly recommend Blade the Rune King if you haven't got it, mid to early, maybe even late game wouldn't be a bad pick. Enable your great amount of peeling. But in case you don't, and you want to go something a little bit spicier, to enable maximum wave clear and go against all the squishies, assuming there isn't any enemy team tanks you want to take care of, I'd almost want to suggest trying Profane Hydra. It seems a little crazy, but this just empowers your wave clear to be truly god tier late game. Otherwise, Ikudo Opportunity is a pretty good follow-up. A lot of AD, lethality. If you're full crit already, it's not a bad means of late game, like hard diving and then disengaging, basically. It gives you a lot of move speed, a bunch of lethality to work with, and a lot of AD. The boots, it's really what I want to recommend is your preference. But where I'd go, just because I really want to push that idea of damage, would be the Sorcery Shoes. You might ask yourself, why Sorcery Shoes? Are you an ADC or an AD caster? Well, towards mid to late game, you deal an absurd amount of magic damage. Even getting magic boots early helps you push in a bit more damage if you don't plan to get profane at any point in the game. Just a little bit of flat penetration to help you with the early game stages. And remember, the crit chance gives you a bonus magic damage going on with your Q, and it is being multiplied. So, if you get far enough, like mid game or so, you will deal a substantial amount of magic damage. These boots just enable it to be more than just like an anti-building gimmick to more like an actual means of dealing damage. Of course, you don't have to go that. That's just personal preference. Ability haste goes well. You know, people love ability haste on Smolder, spam his Q, his entire kit. A little bit quicker. So your summoners are pretty strong. You can able to use that for team fights. One of the Smolder's biggest winning points is team fighting. Berserkers isn't bad, especially assuming you can upgrade it late game to Zephyr now. And there's also boots of strength that I've seen. If you ever seen like a Smolder or tried to gank a Smolder or been in an enemy lane with a Smolder, and they seem a little bit too fast and you just don't manage to catch them, this is the reason why. These boots would enable a Smolder to get out a little too easily. It's great for disengaging. Now let me just explain a few items why I don't think they'd synergize too well with Smolder specifically real quickly. Just try to wrap it up. Like Collector is like what I felt like would have been a go-to towards damage. It gives you lethality, a great amount of AD, and crit chance, immediately giving you a big boost in damage and execute. But there's a few things that mess with me here. There's one thing that just bugs me here is the core gimmick of the item and finding a place on where to build it specifically. The execute is at a threshold of 5% health or lower. Once you get your execute is automatically better than that ratio. Its base ratio is like around 6%. Just a 1% difference. But the fact that it's its core gimmick, like taking away at one point or another, kind of bugs me. I feel like not the full extent of the value of the item is being pushed forward. Another thing is just trying to find a place on where to build it. Essence Reaver seems kind of core to build, gives you ability haze, and it really just fixes your mana problem. Smolder's biggest leading issue is mana, and following that up with rapid fire cannon feels kind of like you're missing out on like a core valuable item. This enables you to farm at a much easier, safer distance, giving you a little bit of burst and damage and a little bit of move speed. It just feels like you're missing out a lot if you don't go the second. And from there, you want to enable your damage. And mid to late game, a little bit of lethality doesn't mean too much. After the durability patch, people are ridiculously tanky. If you want to get only a little bit of lethality, the best time to get it would be in the earlier stages. So you could go the item if you really want, but I don't see much use in going it or where to put it in the build. Infinity Edge is recommended on Smolder. And something that bugs me around that is that since people are building this ability haste heavy looking build, they're spamming his Q, and his Q is probably his main output of damage, really. But the issue is that his Q does not crit. It is boosted in damage by crit chance. It is not actually crit. And this crit bonus damage is kind of lost and only to be used in your autos that people are, using, but they're not focusing too hard on. So that bonus crit damage is kind of lost. So crit chances, it definitely has a value towards this Q specifically, but crit damage does not. It doesn't mean you can't use your autos and try to, use your advantage with that. It has a ridiculous amount of AD. That crit chance that you want. I just feel like there's a bit of a loss in not full use of that item. The same idea goes with this item. You need a crit for this bleed to proc. You have to use specifically your autos for that. And once again, your Q does not crit. That crit chance has value here in his Q, and that good amount of AD definitely. But the fact that it doesn't crit, that means you have to rely strictly on your autos to enable that bleed to come through. That's more or less the items. But let me go ahead and just start talking about the runes. I have grown obsessed, addicted, maybe too comfortable with the very idea of Arcane Comet. It is an extra follow-up to your bursts of your great amount of AoEs. It has good scaling, seemingly works well with your kit, even more so towards endgame. Because if you didn't know, Arcane Comet, it's a single burst AoE towards an enemy when you hit them with a an ability, but if you follow that up and manage to hit them with more abilities, that cooldown is reduced with your ability. Single target, your time effect, damage over time, like a one just full combo. By the time your Q comes back already, at level 6, assumingly, you already have your arcane comment again. Mana flow ban to help with that early struggle with mana. Essence Reaver is a very expensive item, so to help you with your mana issues and also over time if you can't really queue anything, it's just having a little bit more mana in that missing mana regen kind of helps you. If you manage to fully stack it early game, basically all it really means that you have always enough mana for one more Q. You will always have enough for one more Q. Your Q is pretty cheap in terms of mana cost. So having this fully stacked means you can stay out laning phase even if you lose a trade or come a little bit low. Just stack up your healing with that AoE effect of the coal and play safe. And you could get a surprising amount of health if you really want to boost your chances, maybe get a refillable potion along the way. Now the rest of the runes, because you're trying to gear into like, you're really building into that damage that is going to be scaling with you, also giving you a more feasible approach. That damage, and the rest of the runes are kind of just geared towards giving you that surge of AD. The damage multiplier of your Q is being put to better use. Gathering Storm, late game scaling, absolute focus, a decent amount of AD scaling with you. Eyeball Collection, giving a flat amount of AD that changes regardless just with your kill participation. And then Ultimate Hunter. And one of the things I noticed that regardless of what build you're going with Smolder, is that your ult seems to actually have some good ratios in terms of damage. Some great ratios. But your ult is also a way of enabling like winning team fights. It's a giant AoE that slows the enemy team and deals a decent chunk of damage. If you can hit the back line or the enemy team, you considerably made the odds better for your whole team fight just by hitting this. And having a little bit sooner enables you to come in during team fights or make some plays when people are messing up. You can dig their grave a little bit deeper just by throwing this ult. Like all this AD you're building up so far will be put to great use in your ult specifically. And just having that more often, having this ult more often would make the enemy team's life so much harder. And little stat runes, you can play around and do what you want really in between here, but you know, trying to get the AD early, trying to get the AD, just trying to build a surge of AD to make every Q, every auto feel a lot more impactful. Just one thing I want to recommend if you're going into this build is that definitely try to use your autos a lot more often. Your Q will be still your core DPS, but your autos, because of this build, will have a lot more impact, a lot more punch, and a lot more weight to them. Giving with a little bit more attack speed than you're normally used to, you can generally get a lot further just by stretching out the combat. Q in between autos, like an auto reset to an extent, like just a surge of DPS for you to go through. So yeah, that's like the build. The build that will kill Goku, the build that will end the world. So you should definitely take it into your ranked games. I've seen a surge of Smolder-ers tops recently. I feel like it's been really popular. Yeah, bye.